Welcome to Bunny 101. Today we're going to talk about bunny biology, social structures, rabbit health, behavior handling and bonding, housing, and enrichment. Rabbits have a 170-degree field of vision around their body. They have a blind spot at the nose and their tail. They have very limited depth perception, so they don't see things very well close up. So think of, they see really well far away. Think of, the hawk in the sky or the coyote, 2 miles away. They can see very, very well far away, but they don't see very well close up, and they really don't have a good idea of how the distance things are from them, or here in the shelter, if they wanted to jump out of the kennel, most rabbits, if they're in a higher kennel, are not going to jump out of that kennel because they can't see the ground. That being said, obviously we don't want to leave kennel doors open for rabbits to potentially jump out of a kennel, but most of them will not. They'll come to the edge and look over the edge, but they actually won't take the leap because they can't see the ground. They use their ears to communicate, especially the rabbits that have their ears up on the top of their head. It's a little bit harder with a lop bunny. They have really amazing hearing, and their ears are also used to control the temperature in their body. So in the summertime, they're kind of used as air conditioning. Those big ears can let out a lot of heat out of the rabbit's body. Rabbits don't sweat, they pant like a dog, but they don't have the ability to sweat like we do. As far as touch goes, rabbits really prefer to be touched around the head, the face, the neck, and the ears. Kind of as you move further down their body, the closer you get to their bottom, they really don't like their bottom touched. Some rabbits do like more petting, but as a general rule, rabbits prefer to just have the petting around their face, neck, and ears. Rabbits are very territorial. Most societies of rabbits, this would be more of a European rabbit as opposed to a cottontail, have a social structure with a female doe in charge of that social structure. The cottontails here in Colorado live above ground. They only really come together for mating times, and they pretty much live solitary lives. Cottontail nests are above ground. That's why people often find them in their yards and things like that. The European rabbits live in warrens under the ground. So think of the book Watership Down. Those are all European rabbits living in a society of rabbits that are living under the ground, similar to a prairie dog. Rabbits are very, very social. They're hardwired to live in social groups, and that's why we recommend that there are 2 rabbits in a home living together, because they do better in pairs. Rabbits are lagomorphs, so they are not rodents. One main difference between lagomorphs and rodents are behind rabbits' front teeth are a set of peg teeth. They sit directly behind those front teeth, and they act as kind of a base for the teeth to sit on. So that's one major difference between a lagomorph and a rodent. There are 3 types of lagomorphs: rabbits, hares, and pika. So that's it. Those are all the lagomorphs. There aren't any more. And rabbits are crepuscular. So they are dawn and dusk as opposed to day and night. So you'll see the rabbits in your neighborhood out and about starting probably around 6. And going till maybe 10:30 or 11. And then they kind of get going again around 5 till probably about 10 or 10:30. And then the middle of the day is kind of their nap time. You don't see much of them. When rabbits do build nests, especially the cottontails, people will often find a nest and they'll say, oh my gosh, the mother rabbit was nowhere to be found. Well, that's because she's probably hiding under a bush, keeping an eye on the nest. She doesn't want to draw attention to that nest. And so the well-meaning human right? The mother isn't around, isn't taking care of the babies, and they bring all the babies to the Dumb Friends League. But when in reality, she's probably hiding under a bush nearby, you will never see that mother rabbit tending to her babies because she doesn't want to draw attention to that nest. And most mothers only feed their babies twice a day, very, very early in the morning, when no one is around, or very, very late at night, again, when no one is around, so that she's not drawing attention to that nest. I recommend that if people do find baby bunnies, they take them back and put them where they're found, because the mom will come back and take care of them. Rabbit milk is very, very specific. And usually when those bunnies are taken away from their mother, they will most often die because there's really not a good way to feed them. So well cared for rabbits live 10 to 14 years. For my adoption counselors, this is super important for patrons to understand, because I think most people think that bunnies live 5 to 8 years, but they have more of a lifespan closer to a dog. So it's important that people understand that they're in it for the long haul. And then rabbits are super curious. They're super social. And when they're in the proper environment, they really can be great pets. So more bunny facts. You guys can look this over. I think it's pretty cool that they have 14,000 taste buds and chew 130 times a minute. And it's important to know also they're the third most relinquished animal in the animal shelter, again, because I don't think people realize what they're getting themselves into when they adopt a bunny. So now we're going to talk a little bit about rabbit health. So this is just kind of a general pyramid, basically of what a rabbit diet should consist of. Most of their diet should be hay, just like the Timothy hay that we have here. I recommend on feeding rabbits greens 1 time per day. For an undernourished or malnourished or underweight rabbit, greens twice a day would be appropriate. And then pellets, again, this is going to be based on the bunny's size, but I really don't recommend more than like 1/4 or 1/3 of a cup of pellets per day. So once that bunny is done eating their pellets, they're done. You don't refill that bowl until the next day. And then 2% of their diet should be treats. Treats include carrots, apples, bananas. Rabbits can have a lot of different kinds of fruit. They can have papaya, peaches, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. They can have broccoli and things like that. Patrons need to be really careful introducing too many different kinds of greens and different kinds of foods too quickly. Sometimes this can make bunnies really gassy. And so they just need to kind of go slow and introduce greens a little by little, instead of, giving them, cilantro and parsley and broccoli for dinner. It just might be too much. So again, just kind of ease them in, and rabbits can be picky too. Some of them will like some of the things that you give them and won't like the other things. Alfalfa is imperative for nursing moms and babies, for foster parents that are taking home nursing moms and babies. We should be giving them alfalfa. It's a lot higher in protein, and it's going to really help that mom produce more milk and help those babies grow and be healthy. If foster parents have babies in the home that they have been feeding alfalfa, I recommend at about 4 or 5 weeks, they start adding some Timothy hay to that mix. Alfalfa is a very, very sweet hay. It tastes really, really good. And we only give the Timothy hay here. So we need to get those babies transitioned over to that Timothy hay so they can go home to an adopter, because that's probably what they're going to get in the adoptive home too, is that Timothy hay. We don't want to feed rabbits for the long haul on alfalfa. It's just too high in protein. There have been studies that show in female rabbits that high protein diets can cause bladder stones. Again, I've seen a few studies on it. I don't think there's like a definitive answer, but a few studies have shown that higher protein diets can cause the bladder stones in the females. And high protein also includes spinach and kale. A lot of people like to feed those solely for their rabbits, just giving them kale and spinach. And I see kale and spinach more as a treat. I give it to my rabbits maybe a couple times a month, if that, because it is very high in protein. Malnourished rabbits should also be fed alfalfa as well to help them put on some extra weight. Again, just some other dietary recommendations below on this slide. And again, rabbits can be picky, so kind of experimenting with what they like and what they don't like is going to be your best clue to feeding them a happy, healthy diet. So rabbits make two different types of poop. They make the dried pills that we see in the kennels traditionally, and this is basically just digested hay. Rabbits also make another kind of poop called a cecotrope. This poop comes from their organ called a cecum. And basically I call the cecotrope it's a vitamin poop. So the rabbit's digestion goes through the digestion first, and then some of that food goes into the cecum. The cecum pulls out all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that the bunny needs and creates the cecotrope, and then the cecotrope the rabbit actually eats. We shouldn't be seeing cecotropes in the kennels. Rabbits actually bend over and pull the cecotrope out of them and eat that separately. So any rabbit that has diarrhea or we're seeing large cecotropes in the kennel, we need to get that rabbit to vet services because there may be an underlying condition there. We shouldn't ever see diarrhea in a bunny, and we shouldn't be seeing large cecotropes kind of all over the cage. We should just be seeing just these regular dried up bunny poops. So GI stasis is a kind of umbrella term for an underlying condition. And this underlying condition could be caused by stress. It could be caused by not enough hay or an improper diet. The rabbit could also have a blockage. Most often GI stasis is caused by stress or not enough hay. And basically the GI stasis is that the gut stops moving and stops producing fecal pellets. So this would be a bunny that we wouldn't see any fecal matter in the kennel or in the rabbit's cage at home. And if the rabbit's also going to be probably huddled in a corner. Think about when you have gas, it's very, very painful. You don't really want to move. And so you get all tense and tight. So bunny in stasis needs to get to a veterinarian or needs to get up to healthcare right away. This is an emergent situation. Rabbits in GI stasis become hypothermic. And many times the rabbit will die of hypothermia because they aren't metabolizing any food. Their gut has completely stopped. These rabbits need to be syringe fed, and we need to be monitoring them for eating and pooping. Usually, depending on how severe the stasis is, sometimes these rabbits need to be syringe fed 3, 4, 5 times a day in order to get that gut moving again. I also do a lot of abdominal massage on my bunnies if they go into stasis, and sometimes I'll even, chase them around to try and get that gut moving again. And sometimes the stasis really just is gas. There isn't a blockage or anything like that. But again, they feel gassy. They don't feel well. They stop eating, which in turn stops the production of fecal pellets. And then it just becomes a bad cycle. So again, we need to get their gut moving. A lot of times people will their rabbits will pass away from GI stasis, and people wonder, oh, my bunny was fine yesterday, and today it's dead. What happened? Well, they probably weren't paying attention to the fecal output. They weren't looking at the overall behavior of the bunny, and the bunny was in stasis, and they didn't know that it was an emergent situation that they need to get the bunny to the vet right away. So GI stasis is something to keep in mind, especially when you're looking in the kennel, making sure that there's poop. For foster parents, making sure that there's poop in their cage, and making sure that they're active, and any behavior change, you know, especially if they're not eating or not moving around as much, please call the Dumb Friends League foster department so we can have that rabbit seen. Urine color. So rabbits have a protein in their urine. At the moment, I can't remember what it's called. But the more protein in a rabbit's urine, the more the urine becomes kind of a reddish brown color. Rabbit urine can range in color anywhere from our color urine, kind of like a clear yellow to a yellow, to orange to a rusty red color. A lot of times when it gets to that rusty red color, people think that it's blood, and that's not necessarily the case. In a home environment or even in a foster home, a good test would be to sprinkle some hydrogen peroxide on that urine. If the hydrogen peroxide bubbles up, then yes, there is blood in that urine. Otherwise, it's just a high protein diet. So, you know, back off on the spinach. Maybe you're feeding too many carrots. Carrots can also cause their urine to turn super, super orange. But it's very rarely, not that it never is blood, but it's very rarely the case that it's blood. Here in the shelter, I love the fact that we put newspaper in the bottom of the litter boxes. If there's ever a question on urine color, you can just take the newspaper out and take it to healthcare and have one of the vets look at it. But as a general rule, rabbit color urine has a wide range, and it's usually not a health concern. But if you ever are questioning the color of the urine, it's always better to err on the side of caution and take the bunny and its litter box up to healthcare and just have a vet check it out. So I am not a big proponent of wire bottom cages. It causes these sore hocks, very painful, and they can become very, very infected. I don't like, you know, people say, oh, I bought a hutch for my bunny. You know, the hutches are not great. They have the wire bottoms. Rabbit really needs to be in a flat bottom cage, a large area with a flat bottom. Some people use fleece to put on the bottom of cages, and that's fine. Newspaper is fine. My rabbits have a tile floor in their cage, but they have a palace. So, but any sort of flat surface is best for their feet. With the ears, obviously rabbits can get ear mites, and they can also get ear infections. And our evaluations team would hopefully catch this, and we would take care of it. For foster parents, you know, keep an eye on the bunny. If it's shaking its head a lot or scratching its ear a lot, you may want to call the foster department and have one of our vets take a look, because the bunny may have an ear infection if you're noticing they're really messing with their head quite a bit. Common eye illnesses, just like the dogs and cats, they can get pink eye. Obviously, an upper respiratory infection would also cause weepy eyes. They can also get blocked tear ducts. And because rabbits' teeth are elidont, which means they are continually growing, sometimes the roots of those teeth can grow up into the eye socket and cause bulging eyes and problems with the eyes. Obviously, they can also get cataracts, common eye illnesses that all the species see. One way to age a rabbit is to look in their eye. Usually as a rabbit ages, they will get kind of cataract or kind of a glaze over the lens of their eye. And it's a good way to kind of age them by looking at the lens of the eye. The clearer the lens is, the younger the rabbit is. You can also look at their feet. You know, if their feet are really worn, they're missing a lot of fur on their feet. Sometimes that can be due to bad husbandry, but also it might indicate an older rabbit, especially if they have, you know, like a worn piece on the bottom of their foot. There really isn't a great way to age rabbits, but looking at their eyes and feet is one way to kind of help with the age. Abscesses. So rabbits can get abscesses anywhere all over their body. The most difficult abscesses to deal with are facial abscesses, because usually those are due to teeth issues. Rabbit abscesses are horrible because rabbits lack an enzyme in their body that breaks the pus in the abscess down into a watery substance. So dogs, cats, and humans all have this enzyme, I don't know what it's called, that breaks down the pus. Rabbits lack that enzyme. So rabbits' bodies do a really awesome job of walling off that infection, and the pus that they create is kind of the consistency of cottage cheese. And again, if it's a facial abscess like this rabbit has in the picture, that's most often due to a bad tooth. We're going to talk about rabbit teeth here in a minute, but rabbit abscesses can be very, very, very difficult to deal with. So head tilt is is caused by a parasite called E. cuniculi. And it causes the rabbits to become disoriented. They can spin in circles, kind of like a vertigo situation, and then their head starts to slowly tip over. This can be helped with antibiotics. Obviously, the little gray rabbit on the left got the antibiotics faster than the rabbit on the right. But if the rabbit isn't treated pretty quickly, the head can tip all the way over. And it can also lead to death. So, if a rabbit is spinning in a cage or looking like it's chasing its tail or not able to right itself, it keeps falling over, it is possible that it could be head tilt, and we need to get it up to a vet right away. So snuffles or upper respiratory in rabbits is very, very contagious to other rabbits. Usually we try and get these rabbits out into a foster home very quickly, so we don't expose other rabbits here in the shelter. It's usually treated with an antibiotic like Baytril, but if not treated quickly, rabbits can get pneumonia. As a general rule, rabbits do not cough. So if you hear a rabbit coughing, but maybe doesn't have nasal discharge, again, please get it up to vet services. Rabbits don't always show the nasal discharge. Sometimes you actually have to lift up the sides of their nose, and the white mucus will kind of globulate in the folds of their nose. It usually, sometimes in the early stages, it doesn't always look like this picture. So, but coughing, excessive sneezing, things like that, we need to have a vet look at that. Sometimes they'll just get hay dust in their nose and it will cause them to have a couple of sneezes, but they shouldn't be excessively sneezing. They shouldn't be coughing, things like that. It could be an upper respiratory infection. And then just like the cats and dogs, rabbits can get the walking dandruff, they can get ringworm and other things like that. And hopefully our evaluations team would catch something like this, and we would have the rabbit treated before it's going out to a foster home or up for adoption. So teeth, rabbits that are lops or lion heads are more prone to malocclusions and issues with their teeth. They are, smash face, the brachiocephalic skull, just like pugs and the smash face dogs. They still have 28 teeth, but they have less of a jaw to hold those 28 teeth. So again, the lops and the lion heads are more prone to malocclusions. I think they're about 65% more prone to having dental issues. Rabbit teeth, like I said earlier, are elodont, which means they grow throughout the rabbit's life. So it's imperative that the teeth are lining up in the mouth, because those teeth are wearing against each other, and the teeth wear each other down. When they're misaligned, what can happen is the root of the tooth, rabbits really don't have a tooth root. They have an apex. It's an open tooth root. And that tooth starts growing down potentially into the jawbone. And rabbits can get really bad facial abscesses that are very, very hard to treat if they have a malocclusion. So again, I don't know that it's something that you want to go into a lot of detail with an adopter, but just kind of in the back of your head, know that the smashed face rabbits can have more health issues as far as teeth go, and they also are more prone to be deaf. I have a lop rabbit, and she is deaf. She doesn't hear, and she happens to be a lop, and she also has horrible facial abscesses that I've been dealing with now for about a year. So it is not fun, and it gets to be very, very expensive. Rabbits that have malocclusions in the front of their mouth, like this picture on the right, the teeth can be trimmed. There isn't a root that goes through the tooth. My very, very first rabbit when I was 8 years old had a front malocclusion. I'm not sure how, I don't remember, but I don't know if I went to a vet and the vet told me, or I figured it out, I'm not sure, but I learned that I could cut the teeth with a pair of clippers. So every 3 months or so, I would clip the bunny's teeth so it wouldn't grow up into his face. Not every patron is going to do that. We don't adopt out rabbits here with severe malocclusions because they are so high maintenance and very, very expensive. And the average patron is not going to take the time to clip a rabbit's teeth every 3 months. So teeth are a big issue for bunnies. Again, if their teeth don't line up, it's a big problem. And it's also imperative that rabbits have a constant 24-hour supply of hay. The way a rabbit has to chew, that hay helps to wear those teeth down. So again, having hay for rabbits 24/7 is going to help with that teeth wear. And it's another reason that rabbits chew, because those teeth have to be worn down because they're constantly growing. So the rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, or RHDV2, is a very, very contagious virus that we are seeing. It started in Europe and it was brought over here, and I think it kind of manifested itself in another way. That's where we got the 2 from, because it was RHDV1 and now it's RHDV2. There is a vaccination for this. There are only 2 vet clinics in Colorado that offer the vaccination. It's $80. It's very expensive. I believe that all rabbits should be kept indoors. Rabbits are very, very, very temperature sensitive to heat and cold. So that's one reason they should be inside, but this is the second reason. It's extremely, extremely contagious. It is passed also via mosquito. So if the rabbit's kept outside and a mosquito bites the rabbit, they can get this. The virus affects the internal organs and causes the rabbit's organs to hemorrhage, and it's known as the silent killer. Sometimes the rabbit will be fine one day and dead the next. I know a lot of house rabbit people believe that rabbits should be vaccinated for this. My rabbits are not vaccinated. They are kept inside. And I'm super careful, especially in the summertime. Obviously, if you find a deceased rabbit in your yard, a wild rabbit in your yard, you shouldn't pick it up. You should probably call animal control, because I do know that they are trying to test dead rabbits for this to see which counties and how the virus is spreading. We quarantine here in the shelter for any rabbits that have lived outside that are being brought into the shelter, or any rabbits that we think were in a situation where maybe they could have contracted this, because it is extremely contagious to all lagomorphs, basically. So rabbits, hares, and the pica, it's very, very, very contagious. Okay, that's all I have to say about that, I guess. Bunny behavior. So rabbits have big personalities. They have 5 vocalizations and 26 non-vocalizing behaviors. People are always pretty shocked to find out that rabbits are growlers, and they have other funny vocalizations as well. It's important for patrons to understand that digging and chewing is an innate behavior. You cannot train this out of a bunny. They are meant to dig and chew. Patrons often find out that rabbits love to chew carpet. They can, chew wood trim, all sorts of stuff. They will destroy your home. We call it bunstruction or bun destruction. So it's important that patrons understand that they need to manage this behavior, excuse me, because they're not going to be able to train it out of their bunny. It is part of bunny ownership. Rabbits are very territorial. Most rabbit behavior issues are caused by territory, age, younger rabbits, excuse me, and illness. And rabbits are extremely smart. This is a picture of my rabbit Edward. One of the reasons I adopted him is because he is so incredibly smart. My other bunny, Annabelle, is not that smart, but Edward comes when you call him. He definitely understands. He probably understands about 5 or 6 different words, banana being one of them. But they're very, very smart and very, very, very social. So this is these are the postures for a relaxed bunny. They will do the meatloaf position, like the meatloaf cat. And the most relaxed bunny is the dead bunny flop. They actually flop all the way over on their side and close their eyes. They literally look dead. But this is all relaxed bunny. And these are some examples of relaxed bunnies. You can see Edward down on the bottom. He's in what I like to call the bunny rug position. The rabbit, the gray and white rabbit on the side there is in the dead bunny flop position. So these are all examples of relaxed bunnies. Obviously, rabbits are prey animals, so they go to fear pretty quickly. It's just kind of in their innate behavior. They will pin their ears and kind of duck down kind of low. Most of the rabbits here, if they're fearful, they usually run into the litter box. That's kind of how they hide, and they'll usually kind of tuck their ears down. But again, because they're prey species, they always tend to go to the side of fear before anything else. Excuse me, holy cow. These are some examples of fearful bunnies. You can see the white rabbit here on the side has the big bulging eyes and is kind of low in the grass. And then the red rabbit over here, again, the ears are pinned in the litter box, and you can tell this rabbit's pretty tense, kind of balled up, more tense, definitely not relaxed in one of those other bunny positions. With the meatloaf position, so this looks like a meatloaf position, but with a rabbit in the meatloaf position, their ears are usually up, and they're usually sleeping. So they're kind of more in a meditative state when they're in that loaf position. They're not, this rabbit is very, very tense. The ears are down, and the body is more rolled and tense, and it's not in a relaxed kind of Zen mode. It's, you can see his butt's a little more rounded and kind of compact. Aggressive bunnies. So we definitely see kennel aggression here. Usually a kennel aggressive rabbit to me means that the rabbit has been kept in a kennel for most of its life and hasn't really had a lot of free roam. Usually rabbits will get more territorial and more aggressive when they're kept in a small space because the rabbit has control over that space. So with aggressive bunnies, especially kennel aggressive bunnies, I recommend patrons who are willing to give that rabbit more space, because the more space that rabbit has, the less control over that space the rabbit is going to have, and usually that aggression will start to resolve itself. Aggression shows up in a couple of different ways. So they can thump. The thump is kind of a warning. It's a warning to you, and it's a warning to other rabbits to get away. This is my space. Rabbits will also thump when they're annoyed about something. So, you know, if you do something, brush them, or you have to medicate them or something, and you put them back on the ground, sometimes they'll give you a thump as if, you know, to put up the middle finger. Like, I didn't appreciate that. I didn't enjoy that. And here's my thump to show you, right? Stay away from me now. They can also growl. They will charge. Some of them will even kind of rear up and like do a little boxing type of thing. And rabbit bites definitely do hurt. So I don't recommend getting bit. So if one way to test the aggression or to see if a rabbit is kennel aggressive is just to take the food bowl and move it around. Usually if you move it and they charge at you, you know you have a kennel aggressive rabbit. And I would recommend probably getting a towel to get that bunny out of the kennel, unless you're pretty adept at picking them up without a towel. So approaching, this is super hard to do via Zoom. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and we'll see if I can show you. So here's my bunny. I have two different bunnies. So I see most staff kind of running around the kennel on top of the bunny, chasing them around, trying to grab them in the middle. Again, remember rabbits are prey animals. So if you're chasing them around, you're just kind of eliciting that prey response in them. I always recommend approaching the bunny. I offer a knuckle and just kind of let the bunny come up to you and smell you. Remember, they have really bad eyesight up front. So they're really going to experience everything close to them with their nose. So allow that bunny to smell you. After the bunny smells, I always just kind of give like a little pet here. They love to have their face and their head rubbed. And usually they'll kind of relax, and we call it presenting. They present themselves to you to be pet. So I'll give them a couple of strokes and then I just kind of set my hand on top of their head like this. And I'm going to grab this bunny inappropriately because I don't have a table. Then you can take this hand and kind of swivel the bunny's butt around so you can grab them. And the way I grab is I make a V with my fingers on both sides. And I kind of put that V around these two front feet like this. I put my hands underneath and on the top, and I just give a tiny squeeze. You don't want to smash them, but you want the squeeze to be strong enough that they know you're going to pick them up. With larger rabbits, I will even use my forearms and I will rest my arms in the cage, use my forearms up against their entire body and squeeze all of them to pick them up because they're so large. This bunny obviously is small, so I just give a little squeeze. I put them under my arms like this and I tuck those back legs. Be very mindful of those back legs, kind of almost like a cat, and then put them in the carrier. For most people, I think it's easier to put them like this, kind of readjust this hand and then put your other hand here to support those legs up against your chest, okay? And then you can, put them in a carrier or whatever you need to do. But again, make sure you have those back legs under control because that's where you can have a lot of problems. They can push off you, they can twist funny, and they can end up snapping their backs. So usually if you just kind of give them a little squeeze, then they kind of get the message that they're being picked up and they're usually pretty cool. But don't be afraid to use your forearms too, to press against the sides of them to help you with some of those larger bunnies. Give me a second to share my screen again. Again, I'll just leave this up here so you can read this real quick. We should never be scruffing rabbits. That they only have one layer of skin. They're not like cats and dogs. They don't have multiple layers of skin. That's also why we don't microchip them, because their skin is very, 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 very thin. And when you scruff them, you can actually rip that skin away from them. It's very, very painful. So we should never be scruffing a bunny to pick it up. Okay, so bonded pairs. This is Edward and my other bunny, Annabelle. So the bonding is, I guess, pretty much for behavior staff and the adoption lobby. Sorry, I'm looking down. I have a whole bunch of notes. I want to make sure that I cover everything for you guys. It is imperative that patrons understand how complicated rabbit bonding is. I see so many relinquishment notes from people that say, why are you relinquishing? Well, the rabbits didn't get along, or the rabbit is aggressive with the other rabbit. But what does that aggression look like, right? So when two rabbits are going through the bonding process, there can be a lot of chasing and a lot of humping, and a little bit of each of those is okay. What we don't want, or what I consider significant aggression, or why two rabbits wouldn't be getting along, would be what I call the bunny tornado. So they literally spin around in a circle. They are fighting. They will fight to the death, and they start pulling hair out of each other. Any biting from a rabbit is considered, to me, aggression. Humping and chasing is not necessarily aggression. It kind of depends on where they're at in the bonding process, is what I'd say. And that's where the rabbit pairing or rabbit bonding can get pretty complicated, because a lot of people don't know how to judge that kind of humping, chasing behavior. Because of their hierarchical structure, the female usually always wins. So it's important to keep in mind that if a patron has a resident rabbit at home and it's a female, the bonding process may be a little bit more difficult than if they have a male at home. I don't believe that rabbits should ever be marked as a single rabbit home. It is a very, very rare rabbit that cannot be bonded with another rabbit. They exist. I'm not going to say they don't. They do exist. Some rabbits just don't like other rabbits, but in general, they most often can be bonded with another rabbit. If you talk about bonding and the patron doesn't want to make the commitment, and they need to understand that it could be a lengthy process. So bonding can take anywhere from 7 days to 6 months. I wouldn't give patrons a timeline, because if you do, they're going to hear 7 days. And then when it's not 7 days, then you are wrong. So I would just say it depends on each rabbit pairing is very different. But patrons need to understand that if they mess up the process anywhere along the way, they have to start all over again. And so that's where we start getting into the 6-7 months. Okay. Sorry, I kind of lost my track. If they don't want to go through the bonding process, you might want to consider a cat, because cats and rabbits get along very, very well. Cats and rabbits can bond. Rabbits can have that same social interaction with another animal, but the cat and rabbit will come together on their own. Things to keep in mind if you decide to go the cat route: we don't want to hook them up with an overstimulated cat, because usually those cats have a higher prey drive, right? And they need that kind of play. They kind of need a couch potato cat to bond with a rabbit. So again, it has to be the right fit, but my recommendation is, if they're not willing to commit to the bonding process, a cat is a good way to go. Again, dogs and rabbits are not always the best fit, right? Because dogs have a high prey drive, and that's a little bit more of a tumultuous relationship. I think it takes the right dog to be with a rabbit. And usually rabbits do not bond to dogs in the same way that they bond to cats. So what patrons need to know for bonding: they have to be 100% committed. They have to have a neutral territory. So if they have a rabbit at home that is free run of the house, they have to have a room or a basement where that other rabbit has never been. It has to be a completely neutral territory. I also highly recommend that if the patron has a rabbit at home, the rabbit comes into the shelter and we do what is called speed dating. They pick out 3 rabbits that they're interested in, and we introduce the resident rabbit to those 3 rabbits, and we see how each of those dates go. If the rabbit just says, oh, I want this one because of the appearance, or because it's what they want a lop. Oh my God, we have one lop. This is the one I want. Basically, you're arranging a marriage, and none of us want an arranged marriage, right? We all want to pick our own mate. And the chances of that situation working are small. Now, I arranged a marriage for Edward. I ended up adopting Annabelle because of some health issues that she was having, and she needed a very experienced home. So I didn't take my own advice. It worked, and it worked pretty quickly. I was able to bond them in about 9 days. But again, I've spoken, I'm actually working with a woman now who came into the shelter and adopted a bunny. It is not going well. They just picked a bunny. They didn't do the speed dating method, and the bonding process is not going well. She's been trying to bond them now for about 4 months. She contacted me and I told her to stop and take a break. She's going to contact me in another month and we're going to start all over again. So she's very committed. She doesn't want to bring the other rabbit back. She said if it doesn't work out, she's just going to house them separately. But I think it's important for patrons to know that if it doesn't go well, are they willing to have 2 rabbits in 2 separate areas of the house, or 2 separate cages, right? Because there is a chance that it won't work out. Rabbits can also be bonded and they can decide to get a divorce too. So some people will have bonded rabbits for years and years and years. Something happens, the relationship breaks down, and the rabbits actually get divorced and they don't get along. Every time you put the rabbits together again, they fight. So it really is like a marriage. Edward is now the husband, right? It's super cute. So a couple other things. So with the speed dating process, the best pairings are male and female pairings. Again, if there's a female rabbit in the home, the patron may have a harder time bonding instead of having a male in the home, okay? If people are adopting and they think that sometime in the future they may want to get another rabbit, I would really push them to a male rabbit first, because again, they're going to have an easier time bonding to a male rabbit in a home than a female rabbit. So best pairs: male female pair, male male pair, female female pair. This is with spayed and neutered adult rabbits. Okay, now if the rabbit in the home is not spayed or neutered, it is a no-go. This is a no adoption. We are not pairing your rabbit to a not spayed or neutered resident rabbit. It will not go well. There are too many hormones in that bunny. Bunnies were put on this earth to make more bunnies, okay? So they have to get that rabbit spayed or neutered first. They need to wait 4 months after that spay and neuter, and then they can come back and we will go through the speed dating process. The chances of them bonding with an intact rabbit are close to 0. Secondly, if one of the rabbits that they want to do one of the speed dating sessions with was just spayed or neutered, you could have a similar problem. So it's really better to try and find an already spayed or neutered rabbit to do the speed dating sessions with. I know that sometimes that doesn't work because we don't have the right rabbit population. You can try it, but you might notice a little bit more humping or a little bit more chasing in that speed dating session because that rabbit just had a spay or neuter. Best case scenario with the speed dating is 2 rabbits that completely ignore each other. That is a perfect pair. So if they're chasing and humping, it could be okay depending on how that chasing and humping is going. If they start fighting, it is an absolute no. Take the rabbit out of the room, move on to the next rabbit. Okay, fighting that's a no. Chasing and humping is a maybe. Ignoring is a thumbs up. Ignoring is great. Occasionally, very, very occasionally, you will have 2 rabbits where it's love at first sight. They come together. They're like, oh my God, you're the love of my life. They will start grooming each other right away. That is a match made in heaven. Send the patron home. The patron still needs to understand that even with love at first sight, they still have to go through the bonding process in the home. It's probably going to be very truncated, very short. They can probably get them bonded in 3 or 4 days. Okay. I have a really great handout about bunny bonding. It goes through the whole bunny bonding process. I'm happy to send that on. If people are interested, just email me and let me know. I recommend it for any patron who is wanting to bond a rabbit. One other thing I want to mention. It can be very easy with baby bunnies to just send the patron home with 2 baby bunnies because, again, just like with kittens, they don't understand about territory yet and they don't have any territory expectations. Here's what you need to know. Male, female siblings are the best babies to send home together. Again, the male female pair is the best pairing. For baby bunnies, the second best pairing is going to be the female female pairing. I do not recommend sending two male baby bunnies home with each other, even if they have both been neutered. For whatever reason, male siblings tend to, once they hit maturity, tend to have more divorces or more fights than those other sibling pairs. Not to say, again, the world is not black and white. Not to say that it couldn't work, but the chances of it not working with sibling males is a lot greater than with the other two sibling pairings. So if a patron is thinking that they want a bonded pair of bunnies, they don't want to go through the bonding process, then that patron needs to wait for two baby bunnies. You can bond two baby bunnies that didn't come in together that aren't siblings, but again, male, female would be the best pairing for those baby bunnies. And if the patron is thinking that in any scope of the world that at some point they might want to get another rabbit, the easiest way to get those rabbits bonded where they can just take them home and stick them in a cage that evening together, two babies, male and female, okay? Any bonding questions, please email me, or I can come up to the adoption lobby and help you with the speed dating so you know what you're looking for. And then, the more people that go through the speed dating process, you guys will be good to be on your own. Housing and hay. Again, bigger is better. The more space that a patron is willing to give a rabbit, the happier that bunny is going to be. I highly recommend indoor housing. Outdoor it is not great. I have had a couple, when I was in the adoption line, a couple situations where I did adopt outdoor rabbits, but they were going to live with chickens in a chicken coop that had a heated chicken coop situation, or a barn situation where the barn was heated for the animals in the barn. I really don't recommend an outdoor setting for a bunny. It's just, there's too many things to eat them, too many viruses to infect them, too much weather to kill them. So inside is better, bigger is better. If they're willing to have a house rabbit, that's fantastic. Rabbits are easily litter trained. I don't recommend putting hay in the litter box unless they are having litter training issues. It is not nice to force a rabbit to pee and poop on its food source. So I do recommend that the hay is separate. Another great litter box training trick is to put the hay next to the litter box so the rabbit has to eat the hay, and then while they're eating the hay, they're pooping in the litter box. Things that patrons need to know is if the rabbit is going to be free run, they may have to put litter boxes throughout the house. Unlike a cat where you're like, I want the litter box in this room, and the cat figures out that the litter box is in that room and that's the room the cat goes in. Rabbits basically choose where they want to pee and poop, and you put the litter box there. So that's a big difference. When I was house training Edward, when he was really little, I had 7 litter boxes all over my house, and he peed and pooped in all of them. And over time, he just started peeing and pooping less as it became his territory. And now he and Annabelle have 2 litter boxes that are in their kennel or their cage, which they go in only at night. And they will both go back to their cage to go potty. So it is very possible to house train them, but it's basically on the rabbit's terms and not on your terms. Litter box issues are rare, but they can happen, especially if again, people don't know what they're doing. Grooming, so trimming nails, obviously you're looking for the quick. The line on the slide represents where the quick is. Rabbits have scent glands on either side of their genitalia. These scent glands can have a waxy substance in them, and that substance needs to be cleaned out. It's very, very stinky. It's not as stinky as an anal gland, but it's still pretty stinky. You can just use a wet Q-tip and it just kind of comes out. It's very waxy and it smells really horrible. But the scent glands do need to be cleaned out regularly. And then enrichment, Rabbits love things to do. The more enrichment items you can provide for them, the happier the bunny is going to be. My rabbits love moving boxes. We get moving boxes from King Soopers. We get them, you know, wherever we can find them. Every week, I add a different box and kind of change the configuration, and my bunnies love it. Their kind of enrichment castle is covered with a big sheet, and it's kind of like their little hidey house den. They chew on the boxes. They shred them really. But it saves my carpet and it saves them from chewing on a lot of other things. Any sort of chewing items, willow sticks and apple sticks are the only safe wood for rabbit. Petco and PetSmart sells the willow balls and the willow sticks. I recommend those. And there's a lot of great things on Pinterest, or you can just Google rabbit enrichment toys that I can make at home. There's a lot of great home items that can be made into rabbit enrichment toys. So you know, people don't need to spend a lot of money, but they do need to understand that rabbits need enrichment in order to be happy. Otherwise, they become aggressive and they become depressed. They're very, very, very social, curious animals. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me. If you have questions, feel free to email me about anything. If you want to learn to pick up bunnies, I'm happy to give you a lesson here in the shelter. Just send me an email and we can schedule a time. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye.